of the city, much relieved to be in safe territory. We spoke to one elderly woman who was enjoying cigarette after cigarette, chain smoking. She told us that under ISIS that one cigarette was $1 a piece, and she said they're complete hypocrites. She said that they will come, that they drink in private, they take drugs in private, but then she said that they come to you and say, God said this and Muhammad said that. She described them as utter scum of the earth and complete hypocrites. She was one lady who, despite living under 2.5 years of ISIS, still had a lot of spunk in her. John?
All right, Ben Wiedemann for us inside Iraq, having just returned from Mosul. The battle continues to rage there with so many people still caught in the crossfire. Ben, thanks to you. All right, thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm John Berman at this hour with Kate Baldwin. Starts right now.
John Berman, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm Kate Baldwin. Put up or shut up. That's essentially John McCain's blunt message to President Obama right now, coming on a deadline day of sorts for the administration to show proof of the president's explosive claims that former President Obama wiretapped his phones. The House Intelligence Committee is demanding to see the evidence by today. So far, though, no evidence, nada, from the White House or the Justice Department on this. Adding to the confusion this morning, counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, suggesting that the president could have been subject to wider surveillance than even he claimed. But now Conway is blaming the reporter for taking her out of context. That reporter is joining me in just a second. But first, let's get to CNN's Jessica Schneider. She's tracking the very latest on where this wiretap investigation stands. Jessica, any word yet from the Justice Department that they've provided any evidence or anything at all to the House Intelligence Committee on this?
Well, Kate, no word yet. We are waiting. Of course, today is that deadline for the Justice Department to send any and all proof of President Trump's explosive wiretapping allegation to the House committee that's leading this investigation. But it is unclear if the White House will have anything to hand over. For more than a week now, members of the Trump administration have repeatedly been asked, where's the evidence when it comes to the president's claim that former President Obama wiretapped him? And for that week plus, the White House has dodged. The president has ignored repeated questions at the few open press events he's had, and no proof has been put forward. Former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper has said he knows of no FISA court warrant. And interestingly, this weekend, Senator John McCain said that this could all be put to rest. He implored the president to prove it or retract his wiretapping accusations. So, Kate, we'll see if the Justice Department hands over any proof by the end of the day today. Kate?
And of course, again, how much will the public learn no matter what is turned over to the House Intelligence Committee? We will, of course, be asking. Everyone on Capitol Hill will be there. Jessica, great to see you. Thank you so much. All of that brings us to the Bergen County Record, Kellyanne Conway's hometown paper. In an interview with the Bergen County Record, Conway said there are a number of ways to conduct surveillance, including using microwaves that turn into cameras. But now she says her comments had nothing to do with President Trump's claims. Listen to this.
None of that is true. I was answering a question about surveillance techniques generally. I was reflecting what people saw in the news last week, which were several articles about how we can surveil each other generally. The answer I've given about the president and wiretapping in Trump Tower is very simple, and I've said it many times, including this morning on other networks. So that screaming headline doesn't even reach the quote and the content accurately.
Joining me now to discuss is Mike Kelly. He's a columnist with the Bergen County Record. He's the man who conducted the interview with Kellyanne Conway that is getting all of the attention this morning. Mike, thanks for coming in.
Sure.
So let's take a step back because let's talk about this moment that is very important and that is getting, rightfully so, attention today. This is, you're a columnist.
Sure.
This interview, though, was on camera as well.
Yes.
This is what Kellyanne Conway said to you, including your question to her.
That's right.
Listen to this.
Let me ask you, one of the things that seems to be dogging him, at least this past week, is the wiretaps. The allegation that Trump Tower was wiretapped. What can you say about that? Do you know whether Trump Tower was wiretapped?
What I can say is there are many ways to surveil each other now, unfortunately.
Do you believe
there was an article this week that talked about how you can surveil someone through their phones, through their, certainly through their television sets, any number of different ways, and microwaves that turn into cameras, etc. So we know is just a fact of modern
Sure.
life.
Today, she says she was speaking generally, that you're taking her out of context. Did you misinterpret her?
Oh, no, not at all. It's pretty clear what I asked her. I asked her about the wiretaps at Trump Tower. Does she know anything about it? Simple yes/no question. And what she chose to do was to offer this other scenario.
Were you talking? I watched, unless there was some video that I didn't see in this interview, you weren't really talking about generally about surveillance at all. You were talking specifically about wiretaps the whole time.
And specifically about Trump Tower, and specifically what the president said about President Obama, that Trump Tower had been wiretapped. There was no doubt what I was talking about. We weren't having a discussion about surveillance techniques in general. We were having a discussion about wiretapping, and you can see from the video exactly what I asked her.
And then what do you make of what Kellyanne Conway said to Chris Cuomo this morning? And she said it on other networks as well.
Yeah, really two things. I think what is going on here is that the Trump administration is trying to broaden this story. Initially, President Trump came out and said Trump Tower was wiretapped. Now they're trying to suggest that there's even a possible broader conspiracy here. Who knows what will come out tomorrow? My point here is that they haven't offered a scintilla of evidence of any wiretaps, and it's been almost 10 days since President Trump said that.
Why is she blaming you, though, Mike? That's what I can't get. I mean, there's a way to answer that question and say, I don't know. The committees are investigating.
Right.
I don't understand why she's coming to you saying it's your fault.
Kate, this is an old story. You're a journalist, so am I. We face this every day. If you can't control the story, you blame the messenger. This happens every day. It doesn't matter whether you're a small town reporter or a national columnist. It's what happens in our business. This is a very interesting moment for journalism, I think, because I believe what is happening here is that the Trump administration is trying to raise questions about the messenger, when I think the real question here is the message. What kind of a statement then when a close aide to the president suggests that there are other surveillance techniques at work here?
And that actually is one of the things
and
that I was left
that's why I
with.
reported it. That's news. When one of the president's closest advisors says that.
Well, and that leads me to, that was what I was wondering in this, is when she was speaking on CNN earlier and asked about the president's tweets, she says the president's tweets speak for themselves. He can very well speak for himself. We understand that. Do you think she speaks for President Trump? Do you get the sense when you were sitting there with her, she was shooting from the hip, or there's some strategy in the message that she was offering?
I don't know. I don't think Kelly. She's a smart person. I don't think Kellyanne Conway.
We've known her for years. I mean, we've all known her for years.
Right.
Yes.
Highly respected. But I don't think Kellyanne Conway shoots from the hip. I think she's smart. Is there a larger strategy at work here? I don't know. I raised this in my column that is this part of a Trump strategy to try to either make this a little murkier or just broaden the investigation? It's hard to say. But the fact of the matter is that the President of the United States accused his predecessor of wiretapping him. It's been almost 10 days now, and that allegation there's not a scintilla of proof out there. And here we are with the Republican-controlled House demanding evidence. Not seen anything. And I asked her about that, and she suggested that there are other surveillance techniques to deal with. Look, is that a possibility? I don't know, but the fact of the matter is a high-ranking official in the White House said that.
Well, she's not even standing by that anymore, right? She's now blaming you, saying that she misinterpreted the question in general. That's at least where it stands today. But may I just say, as a fellow reporter, in the question coming from you.
Straight up.
Great to see you, Mike. Thanks
Good to
so much
see you,
for coming
Kate. Thanks
I really
for having me.
appreciate it. Thank you. All right, now to the other battle that the White House is facing right now over repealing and replacing Obamacare. President Trump right now will be meeting with HHS Secretary Tom Price and what the White House says is a group of Americans that has been hurt by Obamacare. But everyone is also keeping their eye on their inboxes at this very moment, waiting for the official cost estimate of the Republican plan to replace it to drop. It will offer insight not only into how much this plan would cost over a certain number of years, but how many people would gain or lose coverage under the plan. Not everyone seems to be looking forward to this Congressional Budget Office assessment as we wait for it to happen. Congressional correspondent Sunlen Sarvati is one in the realm of, in truth, of transparency, looking forward to this Congressional Budget Office assessment coming out. She's joining me now from Capitol Hill. So, Sunlen, everyone's waiting for the report. At the same time, folks close to the White House are already dismissing it.
That's right, and that's been really interesting to watch in recent days since last week, Kate, really with the White House and House Republicans trying to to preemptively undermine the credibility of the CEO and really attack the CBO for their predictions, some of which were flawed during the Obamacare debate. But certainly it is an important day up here on Capitol Hill for the fate of this bill. It could do a lot to potentially hurt or help the bill's chances. And that goes a long way when you're talking about House Republicans really trying to keep up the momentum on this bill as they usher it through the House. But again, there have been administration officials and Republicans out on the airwaves in full force, really attacking the CBO in advance of when the scores come out. Here's the White House budget director on Sunday.
If the CBO was right about Obamacare to begin with, there'd be 8 million more people on Obamacare today than there actually are. So I love the folks at the CBO. They work really hard. They do. But sometimes we ask them to do stuff they're not capable of doing. And estimating the impact of a bill of this size probably isn't the best use of their time.
There will be a lot of moving parts on all of this week, not only the CBO score, then you have on Tuesday the members of the House Freedom Caucus going to the White House for pizza and bowling. They have been very critical of this bill. They want to see changes. And then on Wednesday, Kate, the House Budget Committee will start their markup of their portion of the bill. That's the last step before it potentially goes to the House floor. Kate.
Absolutely, Sunlen. A lot of moving parts is right. Great to see you, Sunlen. Thanks so much. So we wait for that report to come out. But ahead of that report to come out, Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, he laid down an important and maybe risky marker about about the Republicans' plan and its impact. Listen here to Tom Price on Meet the Press.
I firmly believe that nobody will be worse off financially in the process that we're going through, understanding that they'll have choices that they can select the kind of coverage that they want for themselves and for their family, not that government forces them to buy. So there's cost that needs to come down, and we believe we're going to be able to do that through this system.
Let me bring in right now national political reporter Maeve Reston. Maeve, it's great to see you. So what are you hearing? What's your sense here? Is this going to be the quote and the soundbite that comes back to bite Republicans in this White House?
It may well be. I mean, certainly what we're seeing so far is a very different analysis of the bill than what Secretary Price just said right there. I mean, the Brookings Institution is saying that as many as 15 million people could lose health care under this bill. Obviously, it's incredibly controversial in Congress, where you have, as Sunlen mentioned, you have senators like Senator Murkowski from Alaska and Senator Portman saying that they don't want to see Medicaid expansion taken away from a lot of people, that it would be like pulling the rug out from under them. So obviously we're all eagerly awaiting these numbers from the CBO this morning, but that really may be a comment that comes back to haunt the White House and Donald Trump.
And House Speaker Paul Ryan, though, on this very issue of who could gain or in this respect, more importantly, lose health care. He had an interesting take about this over the weekend in his Sunday interview, saying that he is not going to be surprised at all when it says that less people will have health insurance under the Republican plan versus Obamacare. Why? He says because the Obamacare was a mandate.
Right. And so clearly Ryan is trying to move the argument in that direction, that this bill will give people more choices, that you'll see potentially more insurers getting into the game, and that will give people choices, particularly young people. But there are a lot of people around the country that don't agree with that argument, who are nervous about losing their health care. We saw that in the town halls recently. And so, I mean, this is going to be a week where Ryan's powers of persuasion are tested on Capitol Hill on that argument. Absolutely.
Even though some folks might be dismissing the CBO report, you can be assured everyone will be reading it. Great to see you, Maeve.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Kate.
So if President Trump can't provide the evidence that the Obama administration, most specifically President Obama himself, ordered an illegal wiretap of him, what happens then? I'll ask a key Republican lawmaker about that. Plus, Congressman Steve King says this: we can't restore civilization with somebody else's babies. Now he's under fire, and he's doubling down. Hear his explanation. And more than 2 years after the shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, videos surfacing now that may change the narrative, change the conversation about what happened in the hours before his altercation with the police officer that led to his death.
Success has always been measured in zeros. But shouldn't it be about first and seconds? How about adding a third?